All right, so first of all, we'll start off by saying Barakathon, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. And I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And shout out to the whole elect, starting with the 144,000, Shalom. All right, so, Lord willing, right, I got some precepts I want to go into. I'm going to make this no long one, but I want to go into it real fast. I'm tired of, a creature subject to vanity, right? And, this comes from precept. Watching Elder, finishing the lesson, I was watching Elder Pastor Rumlad, through the Spirit, probably how about Shai, the Spirit came upon me to go into this, right? It's Isaiah 63 in verse 17, right? And it says, "O Lord, why hast thou made us to err from thy ways?" Right? And this was the beginning of this precept hit me in the spirit. I finished off, it says, "And harden our heart from thy fear, return for thy servant's sake, the trials of thine inheritance," right? And we know that trials of thine inheritance is who? The Hebrew Israelites, right? But the point is, Yahweh Yahweh Shai, he made us to go off, right? That's why Second Ezra 7, right? It says I started verse 10. It says, "I said, it is so, Lord. And said he unto me, even so also Israel's portion." Right? Because we got to go through the hardship. We got to go through the pain and suffering. Right? He says, "Because for their sakes I made the world. And when Adam transgressed my statutes, then was decreed that now is done. Then the entrance of this world was made narrow and full of sorrow and travail, and they are but few and evil, full of perils and very painful. For the entrance of the elder world were wide and sure, and brought in more fruit." Right? If they then labor, it's like if then they that live labor not to enter in these straight and vain things, not straight as in like lines, like hardship, suffering, pain, right? In vain things, they can never see those that are laid up for them. And the point I read is because when you understand, the serpent deceived Eve, later deceiving Adam, right? We were known as the sons of power. We didn't know no evil. We didn't know no wrong, right? We only knew right, right? And when she was deceived by the serpent, which was a male and a man, right? It was that same spirit that was on that serpent had it. That serpent knew. That serpent knew as a. Even before I did the lesson, I was watching the older lesson that Elder Pastor Kabar did. He was talking about how that serpent knew that serpent was later coming. So he knew what was wrong. And he said a saying, right? He said, as they say, in the camp or in the GMS, right? In order to know the truth, you gotta know the lie, right? In order to lie, it's like in order to lie, you gotta know the truth. And he knew the truth. He knew what was right. He knew what was right, and that's why he was deceiving to do what was wrong. It's like Esau, they know where he was like, but they trick you, make you Christianity, things as such, right? And but he deceived Adam, and he deceived Eve, and deceiving Adam, right? And this tree that it's talking about is metaphor for people, because these people had the knowledge of evil, right? We was known as good, and Eve wanted to learn. Eve had a lust to learn it. That's why the scripture say, well, when you're drawn away, you're drawn of your own lust. Eve had a lust to learn it, right? And he deceived her and tricked her. That's how Esau get Jake now. That's why Jake fall away in his lust, man. That's why you got to purge out that flesh, right? But the Most High he knew that though, right? The Most High knew that though, right? So, I get straight to the point in verse 5, right? It says, "For Yahweh do know that in the day you eat thereof," meaning what? Eat is learn, right? And that fruit is the metaphor for the works, right? Because we bring forth righteous fruit, and we do righteous works, through the righteous works of Yahweh Shai, we know when we eat that tree of life, and Yahweh Shai is that tree of life, But if you don't, right, bring forth righteous fruit, then Yahweh Shai, what he said in John chapter 15, he gonna cut you off from that tree. That branch, because we're the branches that come off that tree of Yahweh Shai. And if we not bring for righteous fruit, Yahweh Shai, we bring for righteous fruit, meaning works. Yahweh Shai gonna cut you off, man. He's not dealing with you, right? But it says, for Yahweh doeth know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Psalms 82, verse 6. Also, what is that? I think it's in Matthew. Have I not? Check, I typed it in. Let me see. I want to say it's in Matthew. It might be John. I think it's Matthew 10. Right? Let's see. Slovakia. Let's see. Take my son and mother back real fast. Right? Have I not said you are God? I can hear this. John 10:34. Right? That's what Yahushua said to him, right? And I'm reading this off my other phone. I'll just read it real fast, searching it up. Right? And I'm gonna read it in the KJV version. Right? He says, Yahushua answered them. Yahushua answered them. It is not written. Is it not written in your law? I said, ye are gods. Right? So you understand that we are gods. We're going to get back to that godlike standpoint. But in order for us to be a proper judge, a proper in order to be a proper power, a proper God, we got to learn good and evil. Right? And that's why I read Second Ezra, because back then it was the interest of the world was wide. It was easy for us, but now it's narrow, and we got to go through those straight and vanity things. We got to go through that suffering, right? And that was the point of Yahweh Shai. That's why he calls Adam to sin, bring death to the world, right? Because let's go down to Genesis 3:22, right? It says, verse 22. It says, and the Lord powers said, behold, the man's become as one of us to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also the tree of life. Who's that tree? Yahweh Shai, right? Put in the right works, right? And eat. Learn the righteous ways and live forever, right? And live forever. Right? But it says he says and live forever, right? So because if we do righteous works and we purge out our own way and rehearse that righteous act, be served unto righteous, we're gonna receive that eternal life, right? But the point is, it says, and the Lord power said, behold, the man is become as one of us to know good and evil, right? And that's the point, right? To know good and evil, because once again, in order to lie, you gotta know the truth. Right? You have to know the truth, right? And and that's why the Most High calls our people to go off. So now, right, you have those ones who we all know, right? Let's see, I'm reading the LT real fast. Then the Lord Yahweh said, look, the human beings have become like us, knowing both good and evil. What if they reach out and take fruit from the tree of life and eat it? Then they will live forever. And that righteous tree is Yahweh Shai. Because now we know the process of good and evil. Now Esau can't deceive us no more. That's why in Matthew 24, Romans 8, Romans 8:32 on down, right? In Matthew 24 and 24, the scriptures say, Matthew 24:24, if it were possible, then they come with lying wonders and miracles. If it were possible, they'll be able to see the very elect. Romans 8, verse 32 on down tells you that nothing will be able to bring the elect from the love of Yahweh Shem Shah. Nothing will be able to deceive and trick the elect. Right? That's why tricks say, be wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. Because us knowing good and evil, which is that evil serpent, that same spirit that's on that serpent that's on Esau, we know his ways, we know his tactics. We know the gimmicks and games he's gonna try to pull on us. So he can't come deceive us as he would come deceive the 2/3 who are not hip to the good and evil. See, the 2/3 think that the evil they're living in is the righteous way. They're lost. But Matthew 15:22 tell you, there's no cloak for their sin. Well, I think it's John 15, one of them, right? The scriptures. Let's see, I don't want to quote it wrong. Yeah, John 15:22. If I had not come, how y'all talking? If I had not come unto them, they had not sinned, but now they have no cloak for their sins. That's why how I said, I come for the ones who know they're sick. I come for the ones who know they need a physician, right? Because you got Jake who lived in the ways thinking they living in righteousness, right? And you got Esau, tricking them, deceiving them so much because Esau know the truth. They know that we're the chosen. They know that we're the chosen people of Yahweh Shem Shah, beginning with the elect, and we're going to be delivered beginning with the elect. Right? That's why they're trying their best to deceive the people and trick the people. Get everybody to take the chip. Get everybody to take that. But, get back to the point. Creature service to vanity. Yahweh Shem Shah, he allowed us to go off. Right? Because he knew we would go off. Right? So now that we know that it's evil out there, what path is Jake going to choose? Right? That's why I might tell the lesson, what path are you going to choose? Because you have, quote unquote, the free will that Esau created here. Right? In America, you could be anything. Right? A homo, you can be all these type of things, right? I don't want to say too much with Lord, don't take this video down from me saying that, but you can be, a transformer, you can be a PDF file, like you can be anything you want in America. But that's not what Yahweh Shem Shah set for us. That's not the curriculum he gave us, right? But Esau, tricking you think you can do that, and that's why the Most High allowed our people to go off. Because now they're gonna see, right? Now you got the narrow passage, matter of fact. Let's grab that. Matter of fact, we got to keep talking about. Let's see, Matthew 7 and verse 13. Right? It says, "Enter ye in at the straight gate." Right? We just read second Esdras. Right? "For wide is the gate and broad is the way that lead to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat." Right? That wide gate, that easy gate. Right? Knowing, just caught up in that way. Right? You have the good path, you have the righteous path. The righteous path is that narrow passage. The evil path, that unrighteous path is that wide gate where you can go in and do whatever you want, right? And it says, because straight is the gate. Once again, straight, S-R-A-I-T, right? Which is what the hardship, the pain, the suffering, right? Is the gate, and narrow is the way which leading to life, and few there be that find it. Because there's only going to be a few. The Most High knew there's only going to, from the beginning, he been has his elect ordained. Ephesians chapter 1, the elect been ordained. He knew, right? He knew that he was going to have the election. He talks about in Romans 11. He knew he was going to have those ones who not bow down to the image of Baal. He knew he had those elect, why he said in Isaiah chapter 1, right? It says verse 9, right? It says, "Except the Lord Yahweh of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom, we should have been like unto Gomorrah." Meaning what? If the Most High ain't leave us if Most High ain't have that remnant, the election, right? Because with the nation of Israel is the elect nation of Yahweh Shem Shah, but within that nation there's an elect 144,000 men, right? And and a few women and children as well. But that's 144,000 who are chosen of Yahweh Shem Shah. Right, and those are those that's that remnant, right? They're gonna establish that first dominion in the kingdom, right? They're gonna establish that first dominion in the kingdom. They're the ones who establishing that righteousness of Yahweh Shem Shah right now. Cause why? Cause they focus on that narrow passage. They ain't going in. They ain't taking that wide gate. They ain't going on those. They ain't going in the ways of Esau. The easy ways. We on a narrow passage, going through the suffering, going through the pain, and that was the point of Yahweh Shem Shah allowing having to go out, because he wanted to see who would choose the right way. He wanted to see who was really rocking with him, right? That's why I said in second Esdras 16, right? When it talks about all the pain and suffering that's going to come upon us, right? It says, then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as the gold in the fire, right? So we're going to go through suffering. We're going to go through pain. We're going to go through hardship. Also in Sirach chapter 2, it says, right here, second Esdras 2, it's like a Sirach 2 And I started verse 4 said, whatsoever brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed to a lower state. For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. And that's right, because when gold go through the fire, gold come out with the same price. It come out with the same value. And that's how we got to go through. When we go through this adversity, this pain, this hardship on this narrow passage, right? And so, and those ones who truly for His truth, who truly love Yahweh Shah, who truly gonna choose that righteous path and not that easy way, because it's not no, and through the Spirit, probably Yahweh Shah, it leads us. It's easy in our mind because we, Lord willing, we said it to be that because we ain't falling out no other way. We focus on for the truth, but this ain't no easy thing where you can just come and just jump in, thinking you built for it. Plenty of people done tried that. Look where they at now, back into the world, falling out because they ain't built for the suffering, the pain, the hardship. And that's why Yahweh made this way to see who really rocking with him, man. Because you can't just give a nigga everything. You know that. As soon as you start giving a nigga everything, what they say, as soon as you pat a nigga on the ass, he shit in your hand, man. Just excuse my language, but just being real. You can't be on that. You can't be nice to a nigga because niggas start taking advantage of it. And the Most High do that, right? Even Deuteronomy 4, right? Deuteronomy 4, Yahweh told him, right? He said, Deuteronomy 4 and verse 25, it says, when thou shalt beget children and children's children, and ye shall have remained long in the land, ye shall corrupt yourselves and make a graven image or the likeness of anything, and shall do evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh, and thy power to provoke him to anger. And he knew that would do that. So therefore, that's why he had the election, that grace. He made the creature such to vanity. This is where he made Pharaoh. He made Pharaoh a power. Well, he said, Pharaoh, I made you a power, so when I take you down, they gonna know who I am. Right? He allowed Jake to go out. He made Jake that way. Who can resist his purpose? Whom resists his purpose, right? Whom resists his will, right? Because outside made him that way, so now he can really see who gonna choose that right way, who gonna choose that narrow passage. That's why I read 2 Ezra 7 early in the scripture, right? And now I read it again as we done broke down more, brought some precepts out. I'll read it again real fast through the Spirit, right? So knowing that we read Genesis 3, he allowed Adam to go off, right? Because back then, as we read, right, I started verse 11 for the let's get straight to the point. It says, because for their sakes I made the world, because he made the world for our sakes, right? Eden, the Garden of Eden means paradise, because the world was supposed to be a paradise, the world was supposed to be for the pleasure of men, right? But when he went off, he said, because for their sakes I made the world, which also mentions in 2 Ezra 6, chapter, I want to say verse 54, right? For I made the world for their sakes, your sakes. Because for their sakes I made the world, talking about the Israelites, right? It says, and when Adam transgressed my statutes, then was decreed that now it's done. So when Adam went off, what happened, right? Then was the instant of the world made narrow and full of sorrow and travail. They are but few and evil, full of perils and very painful, right? Because when you go up to verse 9, it's talking about an inheritance. What are we going to inherit? We're going to inherit the kingdom of Yahweh Shah, right? And that's why we also call those joint heirs with Yahweh Shah, because why? Yahweh Shah came down here and endured the suffering, endured the pain, right? He stayed on that narrow passage, endured the suffering, endured the pain. So that's why we're joint heirs with him, the ones who endure that suffering, endure that pain, right? But the point is, right, so now to get into the kingdom, now we're going to go through narrow passage full of sorrow and travail, right? Travail, right? It's like I'm saying it wrong, but we're gonna go through a lot of things, and that's how Yahweh Shah gonna see who really rocking with him. That's why he allowed him to go off, because you got Jake. Once again, Jake, when a man go off, when a man's drawn away, he's drawn his own lust. So you're gonna have Jake who go away his own lust, right? That's why you have men on men, women on women. Or Paul not talking about in Romans chapter 1 where it says, and eventually the Most High just give you up to your own lust. Romans chapter 1, right? So the Most High just give them up to their lust. Those are the ones who choose that wide gate, do whatever they want, that quote unquote free will. And it's going to be a judgment for that. But he knew he had those ones who was going to choose that righteous path. He knew he was going to have those ones going to be wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove, right? So going from there, going to the point of it all, right? Most High is going off, right? He knew that we would go off, right? Knew we can keep the laws perfect, but that's why he sent Yahweh Shah. That's why Yahweh Shah was sent, because when you understand it, right? Matter of fact, before I read Romans 8, I'm gonna read Romans 5, right? I think I did a lesson on this title. I think I titled it the Adam, the second Adam, if I'm not mistaken. But the point is, right, it goes into right. So this Romans 5, right, and let's see, verse. I get straight to the point in verse 12, right? It says, "Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, right, and death by sin, and death so passed upon all men for all that have sinned," right? Because sin is what? Transgression of the law. And when you break the law, it brings forth death. It says, "For unto the law, sin was in the world, but sin is imputed when there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over them that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him that was to come." Who is that? Yahweh Shah, which is going to bring righteousness, which is going to bring immortality. Because when we get into the kingdom, now let's go Romans 8, right? When we get into the kingdom, how about Yahweh Shah? We're going to be in spiritual bodies. Goes to the second covenant, where we're going to be, laws and commandments written in our hearts and minds. There's going to be no more sin. We ain't going to go off no more, right? And that's why Paul talks about it in Romans 7, right? You know, that you know what, for what I would do, for what I would do, I don't. What I don't want to do, I do. Because he would sin. I mean, he don't want to sin, but he sinned because he in his flesh, right? You know, he want to be perfect, he want to move in righteousness, but we can't because we're in his flesh. And Lord willing, that's why we made perfect through our suffering. But we're gonna achieve that perfection in the kingdom, right? So this Romans 8 and verse 20, and read down verse 21. Right? It says, "For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by the reason of him who has subjected the same in hope." Right? So it's all part of the plan to be how by Shem Shah. Creature subject to vanity. It's all part. It's his movie. Right? It says, "Because the creature itself also shall be delivered." Right? So we're gonna be delivered from this because Yahweh Shem Shah, he knew. Right? He know why he said in Deuteronomy, "I know that you're gonna go. I know you're gonna corrupt yourselves." Right? So I know it. So that's why he set it all up to how it is, right? And then, you know, that's why Yahushua had to come through that righteous. That's why Yahushua came to the righteous bloodline. It's all part of prophecy, man. Right? The spirit of prophecy, man. You got to understand prophecy. These people don't know prophecy. All these things are part of prophecy. That's why when when you crucified, he said it is done, man. Right? Because he knew what he had to do. That's why he came down here with the will on his mind. You know, Luke 2, he was like 13 years old. They lost him. Luke chapter 2, where he told his parents, like, you know, not my father's business. He knew what he had to do, right? Yahushua was sent to, you know, to adopt us back in, right? Because Most High was done with us. All our burnt offerings, all that, he was done with us. But he adopted us back in. He brought us back into the fold, man. That's why we're going to be changed to spiritual body. No flesh and blood to enter into the kingdom. We're going to be changed to spiritual bodies. You know, we're going to have the laws written in our hearts and minds. It's the second covenant, which we're not in yet. The only thing that happened was Yahushua laying down for us. But when we get to the second covenant, we're going to be perfect. Right, it's talking about right here, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the. And this is the thing, as before I told you, we're known as the sons of power, right? We're known as the sons of power, right? So in Hebrew, this children it means son. So it's really reading verbatim, because of the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of powers. Right, but reading it how it really would say, right, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the sons of power. So we're going to get back to that. We're going to get back to that righteousness, and we're going to look back. What is that? I want to say what it said. Lot. No. I want to say this in this. I want to say it's in Ezekiel. Let me see if I took notes on it. Bear with me. Right, it's a precept where it's really talking about how, you know, we gonna how our people, we gonna be looking back. Oh yeah, here it is, Ezekiel 36:31. Right, it said, "Then ye shall remember then ye shall remember your own evil ways and your doings that were not good, and shall loathe." Meaning you're gonna look back and be like, "Dang, I was that wicked, I was that going off." because we're going to be changed, right? This talking about how we're going to be changed and laws going to be put in our hearts and mind, right? We're going to be walking in the righteous ways. There ain't going to be no more death because there ain't going to be no more sin, right? It says, ye shall loathe yourselves in your own sight for your iniquities and for your abominations. We're going to look back and be like, dang, but I was going off like that. I was tripping, man. But because we're going to be taking out this, we're going to be delivered from this corruption. We're going to deliver from it and going to be back into our righteous standpoint, right? And we're going to know good and evil, right? So we're going to know the righteous way. But only way we're going to follow is that righteous path, man. We're going to look back and see like, dang, boy, all them evil ways I was doing, I was tripping, right? But the elect, they're on that path now. The elect on that path now. That's why they're going to receive the first dominion in the kingdom. That's why they're going to establish the standard in the kingdom, man, right? But Lord willing, right? The point was made. The creature serves the vanity, man. It was all part of prophecy. It was all set. Yahweh said it that way, right? Yahweh said it that way, right? Now I close this piece up. What's that saying? Romans 9. Bear with me. Right here, Romans 9, right? And I start at verse 17, right? It says, for the scripture said unto Pharaoh, even for this same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. So the Most High don't do nothing without meaning, man. He ain't just doing it just to do it, man. It's all set. It's all put in motion. It's all put in motion, right? Everything put in motion. This is the Most High movie, man. We just happy to be revealed the parts of it and being caught up and being on the right side, being on the righteous side of the movie, man. He said it how he wanted to go, right? It says, therefore hath he had mercy on whom he will have mercy on, and whom he will harden. It says, thou wilt thou say then, right? Thou wilt thou say then to me, why doeth he yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? Meaning, how he gonna find fault in me if he made me this way? Because all how he said it is all part of prophecy. It's all part of prophecy, and you see how it's turned out that it would need to be that way, right? Because as long as we in this corruption, we're gonna sin and we're gonna die and decay, and we're gonna be regenerated back to this wicked kingdom. But the Most High knew that would happen, so he said it to where now we're gonna be delivered. We're going to be living from the wicked kingdom. We're going to be in the kingdom of Yahweh and we're going to be immortal, right? We're going to receive immortality. There ain't going to be no more sin, man, right? So whom is just his will, man, right? It was all part of prophecy. It was all set, man, right? So with that being said, Lord willing, hope this lesson is edifying and exalting, right? And I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and shout out to the whole elect, starting with the 100.